team. So the floor is open. If you have questions, feel free to ask, comments, feedback. We really want to work to be the best partners we can for your team.
Hey, Devin. Hey, it's Pete DiStefano. Thanks for all your help, by the way. I just wanted to comment a little bit about meetings, especially meetings with customers, and I'm going to comment from an enterprise standpoint. Most of the times, like when we have customers reaching out that want to meet you, they are going to be your peers. We generally don't have big relationships. They're not the guys we're selling to, so they're usually a team that's just like you that are doing these security questionnaires on the customer side. So I just wanted to point out, yeah, they are your peers pretty much, and it should be a little easier to talk to them because you guys are speaking the same language there.
So that's super helpful feedback to have. Thank you for that, Pete. I didn't even think about that angle, like a super regimented structure where like your sales cycle's engaged in a business buyer, and then there's like the back end office that we're getting put in contact with. So yes, there's probably a little bit of a difference with how we can treat that, but definitely for SMB, we don't want to be talking to the buyer and shoot you in the foot with saying something that went against what you told them or whatnot.
Just to add to that comment, and that's very helpful. What I've found is that especially initial calls that I've had with a customer or prospect is that they will have somebody, their champion, somebody internal along with their security people. So we've got, on our side, we'll have, our account, the account rep or the SA plus one of either Devin or I. On their side, we'll have, counterparts at different tiers. Going forward, yes, it might be more of a, head-to-head with security, but, and that's fine. But the initial call, I think it's always more comfortable if it'll be a fairly large call, but there will be peers from both sides.
Yep, I've seen that as well, and that's really something for us to make sure that we're just we're working together, looking to see who's coming to these things. And I agree with the first call, and hopefully it's just one call that we should be involved as well.
Just to be clear, we haven't been asked to do that very much. And actually, I don't think I've had that happen, but there has been a time or two where it's been a possibility. But yeah, thank you very much for that feedback, Pete.
Yolanda, would you like to ask your question?
So I have a ton of questions. I was just going to give. So I was curious how long it takes an essay to make the first pass, because First National Bank of Omaha has a security assessment and it has about 270 questions. So I'm thinking that if it takes the essay also about 2 to 2.5 minutes, that's about an 8-hour job. So, and then if we're spreading that out besides their regular workload, then I wonder if it's like, if we could set a threshold to say if it takes you longer than 4 hours, you should pass it anyway, because it's going to sit in our queue longer. And by our queue, I mean customer success, rather than starting the clock on the field team, on the security field team. So that's my first question.
So just real quick there, Devin, because I this is actually very well aligned with kind of what, one of the things I wanted to bring up here. And the reality is it takes much longer than 2.5 minutes for an essay to do that, right? Because we're not doing these every day. And we don't have a single source of truth to go to for any answers at all, right? So it's each individual essay doing their each individual assessment, and depending on how many they've done, they may have some background in knowing some of these answers. If they don't, they're starting like as if you were a brand new field security analyst jumping into this every single time, right? So it's much longer than 5. I mean, I'd say double that minimum. And I mean, in the extreme cases, which you guys, everyone is, Devin, and I know you guys are all aware of with the, with the Pliny Bows, right? For example, I know that Ron in our one-on-one we talked about today, that he said that was somewhere in the range of 40 hours for him to do that. And I believe probably similar in your guys' side as well, right? So we're looking at an 80-hour conversation here about a customer who's not even a new prospect. This is a existing customer with no IACV attached to it at all, right? This is just status quo. And so that's an extreme end, right? And I think that we have to figure out something around that. I guess my question is, I wonder if, would it be, I was just reading through your initiative, which I think hits on this for the most part around the compliance deflection package issue you've created, which is around, sounds like it's around kind of compiling some of these common requests into in a single place where we'll have that to go to. Feels like if we focused on that piece of it right now, more than kind of having to jump into all these things, and it's taken all of your time, trying to just get ahead of what's out there. And I believe the big change that's happened, I would say in the last year and a half, is that more people are looking at .com, right? Self-managed questionnaires are relatively easy because 90% of it's not applicable to us, right? The .com ones are much more complex, and then we get constantly asked questions around like, where do I find this? Where do I find these penetration reports? What happens with backups? How do we handle recoveries? Like all of these kind of things that there are sparse documentation throughout our site that we go and search for and spends a lot of time. I guess my question is, can we prioritize some of that piece of it to get that in a place where then our first pass is really truly much faster and much more efficient, and you guys would have better responses and much quicker for you on your side?
So that's something we would love right now, and it's something we're trying to do. We've recently just switched to where Todd and I each have a single day during the week to work on project work. But that's the issue right now is, talking about how long those questionnaires take. There are more questionnaires in our queue than we have time if Todd and I were to work 10 hours a day, every day.
Exactly.
And so trying to get that package together while we're also trying to meet customer demands is taking us a little bit longer than we would like. But yes, that is the end goal of where we're trying to get, is lots of great quality, curated self-service content.
Right. And so it feels like there may be an opportunity for solutions architects, TAMs, to help build some of that piece of it as well in the meantime, like since we have a lot larger team, right? And we're not all working on that kind of stuff. So if we're able, I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity for us to accelerate that piece of it, because we need to get to that place for this to scale, and it's only going to get worse for you guys, only going to get worse for us, because we're getting more and more of these every day, and the questions are not, and we're starting fresh every single time, right? It's like, okay, got a new questionnaire, don't have a place to go to. I can go look through that massive folder of questions and spend all my time doing that, or I can go to the documentation site and try to find things or ping people, and it's almost like starting over every time. So
absolutely,
what we can do to accelerate that. Any thoughts there?
We'll take any help we can get on that. I've linked the issue. Feel free to jump in and comment or say like, hey, this is helpful, this isn't helpful, I can help with this. Everything is publicly accessible as far as like the CAIQs and whatnot. Any help you guys want to give us would be great. Not that we're asking for it, but it'll be good when we can get there. When I was at Duo, we measured compliance requests coming in for security questionnaires prior to having a deflection package and after. Total volume dropped by 35%.
Yeah.
And then the total volume of questions that came in from customers that said like, yes, your package is good, but we still want extra questions, had reduced by like 75% the volume of questions. So it helped us a ton. I don't know that we're going to get the same results here. A lot of it is in how sales effectively communicates like the use of that package. But I think that it'll be a very valuable tool.
As a first iteration, can we just get like here's the top 50 list. Here are all the things. Here are the documents that you go and search for every single time that we, like the penetration test example, right? Or any of those. Can we at least start there?
Yeah, that's super great idea. I will add that onto my Gap Stage 1 issue here. And we should be able to get that kicked out like next week, pretty easy.
Because I think that would reduce our time exponentially and your time as well on top of that, right? So let's shoot for something like that. I think the bigger initiative you have here is fantastic and much more thorough, and what we're going to need ultimately. But in the interim, just this, so you guys can catch up, so you can actually work on that. Maybe we all focus on that, and I think we can ask the SAs, say, hey, what are the common requests that you see as a trend through here? Go and put those in there and create some sort of document where we have that as a starting place.
I want to circle back to Yolanda real quick too. Her and I had a quick conversation, which I think this is kind of what this is deriving from. I didn't know there was a difference between TAMs and SAs other than one was pre-sales and one was post-sales. And I think that's kind of what Yolanda was driving at. Is that what you're going for there?
So that was my second question too, is on the template, it says SAs have to give the pass. Can we change that template to add TAM so that we can help the SA team offload some of that work? I mean, I might be making a lot of TAMs mad by saying this, but I think that we could help also. And we do. We give them the first pass, then we send it over the SA, and then they'll either thumbs up it and then send it over. But I think if we could cut out if we could help in that way. And then also, Devin, I was actually going to reach out to you because that one assessment that I put in y'all's queue has, I think, like every question under the sun of questionnaires. I was thinking that might be a good example to post as, here's where you find this question once you give it a pass, of course, because Steve and I looked at it and hopefully we got as much as we could done, but we stopped at like, I don't know, I think 60% of it maybe. It was just a lot.
Some of these are very, very painful.
Yeah. Yes.
And no, I mean, this has been great. CS is, in my opinion, our number one customer is field security. I mean, we have other responsibilities, but really our job is to do everything we can to enable you all to crush it when it comes to anything to do with the security department. And you guys have been fantastic partners. Yolanda and I have worked on multiple things. Pete and I have worked on multiple things. Some of you I haven't had the experience to work with yet, but I have not had bad experiences with your team. So thank you very much, both Brian and Yolanda, for that feedback. And then Tim, for the feedback you gave. All that is going to be super helpful in aligning what we're providing to what you need.
I also want to point out that we have a broader base than just even the SAs and TAMs. We've got Julie, we've got Miguel, from, contracts who are also, willing participants in this, this first pass. So, it should really be a much more general, scope than limiting, than saying SAs. I think that's sort of a historical thing. The triage board actually still says compliance on it, even though compliance hasn't been involved in these things for quite some time.
Yes, where would I be without Julie? I don't see her on the call, but I know she messaged me this morning and said she's going to be on. But she's been a fantastic partner in contracts, and I think their team is just as small as ours and gets hit quite a bit. But yes, I love how much we're selling right now. It's great. It keeps everybody in business. And we need to work as a team to scale.
All right, that was all the questions in the doc. Do we have any others?
I'm going to sort of ask, this is kind of a thought question, kind of a general thing, as we go forward. We will have, we have this 20K threshold, on, the work that we want to do. But if we kind of step back, do we want to say that in general, I mean, there's a lower limit that we will look at these at all? I mean, if it's a $20,000 deal or less than that, is it even worth, unless it's a 10 question, survey, is it really worth, an SA TAM, somebody doing it at all? We often find that there are very few things that, that they really care about. And if we can get them to focus on the handful of items that really do concern them, rather than, they've grabbed this off the shelf, InfoSec questionnaire, and they throw all 400 questions at us when they're really only interested in about 20. Anyway, the point is, there's a lower limit at which we shouldn't be doing these at all, for anybody ever. And as we, as our, the incoming opportunities grow, that's going to become even more important, that we don't waste our time on small deals while these, these big ones, start to pile up.
And I see a question in the channel from Julie about the 20K limit. That's a great question that I don't have a very solid answer to. Is it tied to an opportunity or total account value? Joel, if you're on, could you maybe chime in there? From what I understand, this came from a conversation from Rob and Joel around like minimum threshold for opportunity engagement.
Yeah, it's actually much bigger than me, but it comes down to just the 20K threshold that we have for TAMs and commercial, 20K for command plans, all those kind of things. We're kind of sinking on the 20K thing, and trying to use the proactive approach to fend off everybody else as much as possible, just due to time limitations, right? The amount of people asking for massive amounts of time for really small opportunities is becoming problematic. So, or I think we were assuming that this would be the total size of the opportunities on an account. If we need to approach that differently, then we certainly can. The problem we have right now is we're also working on a good way to understand what the total opportunity of an account is, the total account value over time. That may become a more prevalent driver when we've got a better calculator on it. But for right now, I know that's something that we're still working through.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Joel. I know what started the conversation in field security was we realized there's a huge backlog of questionnaires we didn't know about. And so we went to go prioritize them by account value. And there was a questionnaire that took us about 6 hours to do that was for $345 total dollar, like $345 total account value. That's when Rob's like, we should probably go talk and make sure that like this is something we want to do.
I think too, the other thing to point out there is if there's an exception to that, if you have a smaller opportunity, but you see a whole lot of future opportunity there, and we've got some drivers toward that, and we need to make an exception, let's build that case as it comes. The reality is, total account value is the most important driver there. But if we just have one team buying it in a large named account, is that the right time for us to do this or not? I think that's the discussions we need to have as we get there. Just based on volume and the fact that, we need to make sure we've got a sticky opportunity before we invest another 20 hours in somebody's security audit with a couple thousand questions in it, because those do come in.
Absolutely. And, really the big thing is here, Todd and I don't want to, limit your ability to do your job. So we really appreciate how much you guys have been working with us.
Awesome. Any other questions?
I'll just add that if we could kick off an initiative to help security come up with like a unified doc, I'm happy to volunteer as tribute to help the initiative from the TAM side or customer success. And then
Thank you, Lana.
Devin, you had mentioned before that there was the group might get split into a pre-sales and post-sales. I guess when I first talked to you, you said that you weren't sure if you were going to go post-sales, pre-sales. Was that initiative dead?
Okay, yeah. So originally, something that when we were trying to figure all this out, field security was going to be pre-sales and compliance was going to be post-sales. Since then, we've resolved that. Field security is going to remain completely involved with customers. Compliance is going to stay where they are. So you're not going to have to work with other people. It'll be us, Yolanda. And we're really looking forward to building out something that works well for everybody and providing you all some more predictable SLAs.
Awesome. Thanks.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice. All right. Far be it for me to beleaguer the point. I've documented every question and answer here in the document. If you think of questions later on, please feel free to add them in to the document and we'll circle back with Devin and Todd to make sure that we get those answered. Special thank you to Devin and Todd for joining us today. I know this was a very hot topic and I think you've given us what we need to move forward with this process. So thank you both. Thank you to everyone who asked questions and offered feedback. We will see you all next week.